In 1993, during a high-stakes match in Mexico, a professional football manager looked at his tactical board. With total desperation, his team was losing, the clock was ticking, and they desperately needed a goal. Standard procedure dictates you bring on a fresh striker from the bench. You change your tactical formation, throw extra men forward, and hope for a miracle. But this manager decided to try something that broke every single rule of football sanity. He signaled to his starting goalkeeper. The goalie ran over to the touchline, took off his gloves, pulled a forward's jersey over his head, changed his boots, and sprinted straight into the opponent's penalty box as a centre forward. And the wild part? It actually worked. Most footballers spend their entire lives mastering a single position on the pitch. Jorge Campos looked at that concept, smiled, and decided it was entirely too boring. Football, at its core, is a sport obsessed with structure and boundaries. Defenders clear the ball, midfielders dictate the tempo, strikers are judged solely on goals scored. And then you have the goalkeeper, the lonely outcast, the only person allowed to use their hands, wearing a completely different kit, so everyone on earth knows they don't belong with the rest of the team. But every once in a while, football produces a figure who looks at these century-old rules and treats them like mild suggestions. Enter Jorge Campos. Standing at just 5 feet 8 inches tall, or 173 centimeters, Campos was practically microscopic for a modern professional goalkeeper. By normal standards, he shouldn't have even made it. Yet, he didn't just survive, he became a global phenomenon, not only because he wore oversized, neon-colored jerseys that looked like a tropical hallucination, but because he was, genuinely, two elite, high-level players trapped inside the exact same body. To understand how this glorious madness began, we have to travel back to 1988, to the intense, heat-soaked pitches of Mexico City at a club named Pumas UNAM. Jorge Campos was a young, ridiculously athletic kid. He had a vertical leap that defied gravity and wanted nothing more than to be Pumas' starting goalkeeper. There was, however, one tiny obstacle. Pumas already had a legendary goalkeeper named Adolfo Rios. Rios was experienced, reliable, and practically glued to the starting spot. Young Campos realized he was going to spend his youth sitting on a cold wooden bench, staring at the back of another man's jersey. But Campos didn't do normal. He walked into the manager's office and made a proposition that sounded like a joke. "Look, if you won't play me in goal, just put me up front as a striker." Now, any sensible manager would have laughed and told him to sit back down, but Pumas' management was curious, or maybe just insane enough, to say, why not? What happened over the next season was nothing short of absolute fiction. Campos wasn't just a gimmick fill-in player, he was a genuine, terrifying attacking threat. In his very first full season, playing as a striker, Jorge Campos scored 14 goals in the Mexican top flight. A registered backup goalkeeper was actively competing for the league's top scorer award. Imagine being a professional defender in Mexico in 1989. You spend all week studying video footage of opposition forwards, only to get completely torched by a guy listed as the substitute goalkeeper. He became an overnight icon. But Campos never lost his obsession with goalkeeping. When Adolfo Rios left Pumas, Campos finally got his dream, the #1 jersey. But he took it on one condition. He wouldn't stop scoring goals. Being a goalkeeper in the 90s usually meant staying close to your goal line. Campos completely threw that manual out the window. Long before modern football praised sweeper keepers like Manuel Neuer, Campos was sprinting 30 yards out of his box, tackling attackers, and dribbling past pressing forwards with calm, terrifying confidence. Watching him play gave heart attacks to his managers and absolute joy to the fans. But his true party trick was reserved for moments when his team was trailing late in a match. Normally, when a team is losing in the 88th minute, you might see a goalkeeper run up for a desperate corner kick. Jorge Campos found that strategy completely amateurish. He had a far more chaotic solution. When his team needed a goal, the manager would call a substitution, An outfield player would be taken off, and the backup goalkeeper would step onto the pitch to take over the net. Campos wouldn't leave the field. Instead, he would run to the sideline, take off his baggy goalie shirt, slip into an outfield jersey, swap his gloves for boots, and walk straight into the penalty box. As a striker, opposing teams were thrown into pure panic. How do you mark a guy who was catching your shots 10 minutes ago and is now trying to bicycle kick a cross into your net? In one famous match for Atlante, Campos started in net, making multiple brilliant saves. In the second half, with his team down, the tactical swap was made. Campos shifted to forward and scored a jaw-dropping, acrobatic scissor kick goal that had the entire stadium standing on their feet. He didn't just stop goals, he scored them. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this is just Mexican League chaos. Surely this didn't fly on the international stage. Oh, but it did. When Campos became Mexico's main goalkeeper, international managers realized they had a secret weapon. During official tournaments, like the 1993 Gold Cup, Mexico used Campos as a dual-threat weapon. In games against Canada, Martinique, and Jamaica, Campos was swapped from keeper to striker mid-game, creating chances and striking the crossbar, leaving international defenders completely clueless. Think about how absurd that is. At the absolute highest level of international football, a nation was using their starting goalkeeper as an impact sub in attack. It was pure tactical anarchy. But you cannot tell the story of Jorge Campos without talking about his look. Campos didn't just break positional rules, he destroyed the fashion code of football. He personally designed his own kits. Bright, neon, oversized garments that looked like a mixture of 90s surf culture and a broken television screen. Opposing forwards claimed staring at Campos was like looking directly into a neon sun. Over his extraordinary career, Jorge Campos scored 46 official professional goals, more than many elite midfielders score in their entire lives. He earned 130 caps for Mexico and played in 3 World Cups. Today, top-level football is dominated by extreme specialization and data analytics. Every player has a precise heat map. If a goalie ran 35 yards out of his box today, his manager would pass out on the touchline. But Jorge Campos reminded us why we fell in love with football. Pure, unadulterated joy. He was a forward trapped inside a goalie's gloves and a goalkeeper with the wild soul of a striker. And somehow, one of the most unforgettable legends the beautiful game has ever seen. The beautiful game, explained somehow.